2023, I think that's the number you used. It was kind of a scary graph. I don't know if it's scary for programmers, for the cable operators, but things are changing. And once you talk about these graphs and the cost of programming and what it all means, and we'll have a conversation.
2023 is an important year, maybe, for the media business in a lot of ways. It happens to be the year a lot of big sports contracts roll over. It also happens to be the year, per our simple analysis, that if nothing changes in terms of the rate of retail ARPU for video, the cost of video programming to consumers, which has been growing at maybe low single-digit numbers, and the cost of programming to operators, which has been growing at high single, low double digits per sub. If both of those things keep happening, we think the profit per video sub for the average cable operator will be zero in the year 2023, which isn't that far away, and that's the average. And so, no big surprise, the bigger MVPDs tend to get a little better programming deals and have a little more profit per sub. And so if the average runs out in 2023, the smaller guys probably run out sooner than that. Now the implication, we think, is not so much that we are forecasting that profits for video subs are going to zero. What we are saying is something's got to break. Something's got to give. Either you have to raise consumer prices faster, which doesn't seem likely, or there's got to finally be some relief on the cost of programming side. And it's real now because operators have wanted to pay less for programming for a long, long time, and they keep paying more because the market dynamics have forced that. But if you are facing a situation where you're no longer having profits from that business, it forces something to happen. And the networks know that it's forcing something to happen. So when you credibly go to a network and say, I'm sorry, not only can I not pay you an increase, but if that's your deal, we might be better off dropping you. And that's credible. Maybe you end up dropping them, or maybe the network comes back with a different deal, a different proposal that finally works a little better for both parties. And so, on average and on balance, this is probably, in a backwards way, a little bit of a hopeful sign for the operators, in the sense that it's gotten bad enough in video that you're finally to a point where we think that something will start to give on the affiliate fee side. For the networks, it's probably bad, because on average and in general, because the days of being able to get paid high single-digit, low double-digit annual price increases per sub for programming, I think, are over. Not to mention all the other pressures on advertising and overall subscriber count.
You talked about traditional cable networks, if you will. What about on the broadcaster side? We're still also seeing a growth of retransmission consent that's a lot faster than the growth of what the subscriber pays.
Correct. Excellent point. The dynamics are the same in the sense that it's all part of a big programming expense pool for an operator. A important difference with the broadcasters is, there's multiple differences, but one thing you think about is the product is still available for free to consumers who are smart or clever enough to go out and buy their own digital antenna, right? And so that creates another dynamic that seems to, at some price, cause an operator to say, I don't know, maybe I'll just tell my customers to go get antennas. So that exists for broadcasters, that doesn't exist for cable networks. And I think that is more meaningful than is talked about. On the flip side, even though retrans is growing at the fastest rate, it's catching up from a much lower base, right? And these broadcast networks tend to have the high-profile sports programming, the biggest primetime audiences, and so as an operator making a tough decision about something's got to give, where should I choose? The broadcast networks probably are in a stronger position than some of the cable network groups that have grown over time, expanded their suite of networks over time to such a point now that they've got these very broad portfolios of networks, not all of which have a strong reason to exist anymore.
So a little bit bloated, in other words, it sounds like. Going forward, I guess the other aspect of it too, it seems like the operators, they have kind of different customers, right? They have the traditional ones who take the packages with the triple play, and then there are the cord nevers, the cord cutters. How do you address those? How do you get to those?
Yeah, so we actually spend a lot of our time trying to understand who cord cutters or cord nevers are and why they do what they do and what do they want. Our simple view is what they want is on demand, and what they want is no advertising, and what they want is a $10 subscription, not a $80 subscription, or importantly, a $40 subscription. It seems like what the programming industry is serving up to try and reclaim some of these cord cutters, cord nevers, or some of these skinnier, over-the-top packages. There's a lot of them, right? Sony and Hulu and DirecTV, YouTube TV, they keep going, right? And all of them tend to be priced around $35 or $40 a month, and all of them tend to have an assortment of television network brands that those of us in the industry all recognize. I think the problem is that's not giving these consumers what we think they want, right? And we know that because we talk to these consumers. And when you ask them, are you interested in this concept? We keep getting the answer, no. Well, why not? Well, mostly because didn't you understand me when I said I don't want television networks? It doesn't work for me. I'm not interested in that. And what you're offering me is just another version of that. And you say, well, but it's cheaper and it's internet-based and it's smaller and isn't that good? And the answer is, well, no, and it's not that cheap because Netflix is $10. Amazon Prime, you could argue, is effectively zero. So $40 is a lot more than that, especially for something I don't want. And so, sadly, what cord nevers mostly want is Netflix and Amazon Prime. These products, we don't think we'll get them back. I think the best the incumbent networks can hope for is when these younger people grow up, maybe they will rethink the way they want to consume entertainment. I guess none of us really know for sure, and some of them will probably bite the bullet and call up their cable provider, but we think this generation who grew up on demand and grew up not being conditioned to accept so much advertising is not going to be able to swallow the way that linear products have been done. So I guess we're not very hopeful for that either.
Yeah, it sounds like we're going to continue with more and more fragmentation and interesting times. So,
well, the good news, I guess, is the one thing we know that cord nevers need more than air to breathe is broadband, and as much of it as they can get. And so, for the MVPDs, especially the cable as opposed to satellite MVPDs, that's a product that is in growing demand, has good margin characteristics, good barriers to entry characteristics, nothing but good characteristics. And so that's the ray of hope from these cord nevers. In terms of the whole video business, there's a lot of things. We seem to be, in our view, at a moment of time finally when there has to be some shakeout. Content is still important. Linear network models don't make sense to most people for most entertainment applications anymore, and so therefore, as that all shakes out, we think that the television networks, there's no other way that they're going to continue to make as much money as they used to make. But it's a good day to be an operator if you have a good broadband product and can offer your customers video options, including some of these services like the Netflixes and some of these over-the-tops. Consumer choice is good. And that's better than losing money reselling a package of linear networks that is at close to zero margins that your future customers don't really want.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, Todd, appreciate your time.
My pleasure being here. Thank you for having me.